Hello and welcome to Curt's Corner. I'm your host, Cur3t's, and this is about our 10th episode of Curt's Corner since I got started. And I was thinking on the drive down here, one of my favorite things about doing what I've been doing for the last 25 years, covering local people, is every once in a while I get to pick the brain of one of my heroes growing up, and that's who we've got today. And he started out as a good all-around athlete in youth sports. He earned 6 or 7 letters at Helena High. He was the most athletic person and a couple of other awards at Helena High, 1967, when he graduated. He earned an athletic scholarship to Rocky Mountain College, played football and was a pole vaulter. And then he went on and spent several decades as a local area builder. And he got into politics, and he was a state representative for about 26 years. And his name is Hal Harper. And Hal, welcome to the show.
Curt, thank you very much.
Glad to have you.
To be called one of your heroes is quite an honor.
Yeah,
I got to tell you.
Yeah, well, you were, and mostly because of your wrestling, because that was my sport. So,
okay.
So anyway, welcome to the show, and I'd like to start out before we get into the Q&A part of the show is to tell the folks about my connection with yourself and the Harper family. And I think anybody that's been around for a while is connected with the Harpers and yourself for quite a while. My connection mostly, going to high school, I was in between a couple of your siblings. Steve was a year older, and Nancy was a year behind me at Helena High. But mostly I got into the connection with your family through your dad, George Harper. Through my sports, covering sports for the paper, and just some great memories. That pole vault clinic down in Reno, I helped drive the bus down there with old man LeBrun and George Harper.
You're lucky to be alive.
Yeah, and I got yelled at for missing a turn in Boise or somewhere by LeBrun. But I spent, George and I were roommates. And of course that was a special treat. And one of the memories that stands out is we were going through the line at the cafeteria. George was in front of me, and the guy that was serving the food kept staring at George. And pretty soon he says, "Anybody ever tell you look like John Wooden?" And I looked at George and I thought, by God, he does look like John Wooden.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I remember being at a softball game, sitting there with George, and one of the gals, there was a foul ball, went over the fence, first baseman comes running over. It was Amy Brooks. She runs to the fence, the ball is, beyond, it's out of play. As she's going back to first, your dad says, "Good first baseman would have had that." So, and I asked her about that later, and she remembered that. Another memory is covering a soccer game, Helena High soccer game out at Seibel Fields. Freezing cold, freezing wind, wind chill factor was way down there. Everybody was bundled up. I was freezing my rear end off. And here came George, wearing a tie. He wasn't in I don't believe he might have been in a suit. Suit and a tie, no hat, no gloves. Wind is blowing, and I'm thinking, wow. And, he was in his 70s at that time, and I was a little bit younger. And I just thought, now, there's a tough old bird. And they said, yeah, I did this, and then I'm going to this, but I had to come down here. He was only there for a few minutes, but I think that was the story when I wrote the book wrote the article about your family, how your mom was saying, when I asked her you know, how often does he go to a sporting event? And she said, every time the door closes behind him.
That's right. And watching those kids would keep him warm.
Right. Oh, yeah. There you go. So, anyway, and then later on, when he was in the motorized, the electric wheelchair at Vigilante Stadium, just buzzing that thing, wore out the battery going from one end to the other.
I'd get him out of the van and got him in that thing the first time, I remember. And the girls were all sort of gathered down at the high jump pit. And I looked again, and he was gone.
He was gone, yeah. Where'd he go?
He was everywhere. He could be everywhere in that little mobile van. He'd watch the pole vault. He'd watch everything.
Yeah, and I would watch him from a press box, and he was, like you say, he was just, you know, and he'd whip it around.
And he knew all those kids.
Yeah.
From both schools, too.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, when he wore buttons, he'd have a Capital High. You know, he was Helena High.
Right.
But he'd have
Harper Court.
Marcy Dickey from Capitol High and a button and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
whose dad is an old buddy of yours, Rob.
Robbie Dickey.
You told me.
We've got to mention him on this show.
You told me a Rob Dickey story.
I'll tell you some more, but not on the camera.
Okay. Okay, so let's just, for some background, tell me about your mom and dad, George and Dorothy, and how you guys, when and how you guys got to Montana.
Well, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, as was my older brother, Rusty, younger brother, Stephen. We moved up to Great Falls because the Methodist Church wanted Dad to be the youth minister up here. Okay. We moved to Great Falls in 1952, and then they built a house out in the country club, wasn't a very fancy one, and we moved to Helena when I started 7th grade. That would have been, what, 1961.
Okay.
And Dad got his own church.
Was that St. Paul's?
That was St. Paul's up on Logan Street, and we lived right next to it.
That's right.
And we had it great as kids, especially as boys in Helena. We had the YMCA right downtown, you know, and Dad loved to go down and do that, and he loved to encourage us. And
yeah, you were kind of centrally located there.
well, we were central kids, you know. You had your West End kids, you had your East End kids, and then you had the Central kids. But we had Vigilante Stadium for all our Sandlot stuff. We had next door was the Cathedral, Greenies. The parking lot for the Cathedral right now is where the Cathedral people had their track and field.
Oh, really?
And so that's where I learned to pole vault.
Okay.
Did
they have a running track too, or
Not
just,
really.
just a field?
You ran all the way around the block.
Around the block, yeah.
Compo's house down there, and then the Robinson's house, and you came back around Pat Neely's house.
Okay, yeah.
Like that. But we dug a pit, because you're supposed to have a pole vault and a high jump pit.
Right.
And so you actually had to fall a little bit further.
Into the sawdust.
There was no sawdust.
No, you didn't even have sawdust?
Oh, we didn't have. Where would you get sawdust?
You'd have to steal it.
Well, we had a pit.
A lumber yard or something.
We had a pit.
Yeah.
That's where we learned, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, or maybe an old mattress or something.
We were lucky to grow up in this town, this wonderful town, and have that support.
Right.
We were boys, you know.
Sure.
And I've got to tell you, one of the happiest days of my father's life was when Title IX passed. And the girls were in the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, my father stuck to those girls like glue. You know? He was always there. Yeah. But my mother, was she was a dancer and a writer and a performer. And you didn't think she was that fast. But once in Great Falls, I had put some baby magpies in the mailbox, because that was a really nice place to sort of keep them. There was a lid on that.
Yeah, they couldn't get
away.
My
mom came out, and I was outside there. My mom came out, and she opened that door and looked in at those magpies, and I took off. And she had me before I got across the street by the ear, and I never tried to outrun her again.
Yeah, that's a good one. And they were both from the South, correct?
They were both from Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah. And I know your dad always had that strong Southern accent, but Did your mom also have
She
them?
always did, and
She
she
did?
could sure turn it on in the plays. I'll tell you.
Yeah. When she got mad,
she
it
was
got
actually
stronger.
worse than Dad, I think,
Yeah,
at the end. But
yeah. Now, any of the kids pick up that accent?
no,
Probably going to school young. You probably
were Montanans.
You got Montana. Yeah.
We were Montana. Of course, Nancy and Janny, they were actors. They could do anything. But
Oh yeah. There
no,
you go.
we were Montanans through and through.
Okay, so go ahead and list off the rest of your siblings chronologically.
Well, Rusty's the oldest.
Okay.
He was a wrestler.
Yeah.
He once got praised by Coach Cohn for going, I don't remember how many seconds, with Gene
Davis.
Yeah,
our Olympian.
The only Olympic wrestler ever to make Olympics from Montana. He was from Missoula Sentinel.
Well, you got him. The Zadok's made it, but
Zadok made it. That's
but
right.
but
Great
he's the only
Falls.
one to get a medal.
Yeah, he's the only one to get a medal.
Got a bronze. Yeah.
Anyway,
76.
that was old Coach Cohn.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Then I was next.
Okay.
Okay. Then Stephen, my younger brother.
Yeah.
Stephen was small when he was growing up. He ended up to be 6'3".
Yeah.
And he's the one that Dad would always say, "Stevie, fight like a tiger." Well, Stevie would just come out tearing.
Yeah, the carrot top.
Steve was an excellent basketball player, very dangerous to play with.
Yeah.
Knees and elbows.
Yeah. sharp knees and elbows.
Someone gave him the nickname Stooge. And I
Yes.
remember Dad and I were over watching a game at Hellgate in Missoula. And one of his buddies, I think it was Jim Valentine, went and told the scorekeeper,
Yeah.
this guy's name is Stooge.
Yeah, the PA announcer.
Yeah, and so he said, "Stooge Harper coming out on the deal." Well, Steve fouled out in a quarter, because the refs thought, "Oh man, this guy's a monster, man," and he was.
Yeah.
He was pretty rough. Okay,
Yeah.
then after that was Nancy, Sister Nancy, below you. She was a Miss Montana.
Right.
And we went back to Atlantic City to watch her, and
Oh wow.
she
That had to
told
be
us
fun.
the day we got back there who Miss America was going to be.
Oh, she picked it out, huh?
She knew.
Picked her out.
Well, that thing was a fixed deal, as we now know.
Oh,
Back in those days.
I didn't know that.
And then Janny.
You just ruined it for me.
Oh, it's too bad. It's too bad. Well, how could she know?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I agree.
Then my little sister Janny was, without a doubt, the best organizer in our family. Excellent piano player and beautiful singer and actress and all that. And so
you guys lost Janny.
she passed away.
You lost her young.
Stephen passed away this last year.
Yeah.
And Stephen ended up actually being probably the best athlete in the family.
He took it to the next level. National.
He was a speed walker with Matthews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Race walking.
And you could see those guys in their floppy hats everywhere. You could see them. They were walking in Townsend and back.
You'd always see that hat first going flopping up and down.
Stephen, I think, what was it? He set a world record in the 50K for his age group, but it wasn't fast enough to make the Olympics.
Right.
Anyway, that was in San Diego, and
okay. Now let's do some of your youth sports. You told me yesterday you started out in Great Falls. What were your? Well, you did all the sports, but tell me about your baseball and your basketball.
Basketball, baseball, probably. I made first team Little League All-Stars.
At what position? Catcher.
Catcher. Tommy Schmidt was a pitcher, and he made it too. I didn't go. Dad had these summer camps he went to up in the mountains, 3 different places. That's where I wanted to go. So, I played a little B league around, and then I played some, fast pitch softball.
Right.
Later after college, but
right.
That for my baseball, and basketball, that was about it.
Right, and that was before wrestling.
Yep.
And then you had, was it chess?
Oh,
Did you get something?
I got second in the city in chess once.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I was close, but
a
guy named Fish, I think, beat me from Largent School. He was the top quarterback and was always the big champion. So
Yeah.
There's one more for him.
Yeah. Well, that chess might have came in later with your political career. That being able to look around.
It doesn't
corners.
hurt. It doesn't hurt to be able to look forward.
Yeah. Okay, so you come to Helena. You get to Helena High. We'll go by seasons. We'll take your football first. You were a halfback and a defensive back, and in my research, I found out about your 2 touchdowns against Billings Senior.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And tell me the details of that.
Well, I think I may have misspoken and thought that we won the game, but they actually beat us.
Oh.
That was one of the first games, but no, I played corner on defense.
Okay.
And so here they came, the quarterback around the end, and he's going to pitch it. And he got confused and pitched me the ball.
And he was a friend of yours.
Well, my friend was the president of the student body president of the school.
Oh, okay.
He was quite upset about that, but I went in for the touchdown, and then I guess maybe I got another touchdown later. But
yeah,
you don't remember those short touchdowns. You remember the ones where you go smoking down the field and finally make it.
Yeah, the long ones. Yeah, where the crowd cheers for you.
The crowd cheers you
while
on
you're
at home. Yeah, that was a good one.
Now, didn't that student body president have a comment for you later on? Or
he didn't like that.
Yeah.
He thought the game wasn't going very good at that point.
Yeah.
Because we were ahead.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay. So wrestling.
Pardon?
Wrestling.
Wrestling. Yep.
You were as a junior, you were the division champion. And as a senior, you won the Butte Christmas tourney.
Yeah.
And so tell me the top guys on that team, and you told me a story about your senior year at divisionals, where it was a guy that there was some miscommunication on what his strengths were.
Well,
anyway, remember that?
I do.
Okay.
I remember it. I remember it clearly. But
so tell me about.
I was on one of the Jack Cohn's team. Jack Cohn, of course, our coach.
Yeah.
Would challenge anyone who thought they were tough enough to take him down. And no one could ever take Jack Cohn down that I could see. And so he was our moral leader. He had a voice that was a weapon.
Yeah.
And you could hear him. You couldn't hear anybody in the stands. You couldn't hear my poor mother crying or my dad hearing, but you could hear Jack Cohn yelling.
I think some of those yells are still echoing up.
Shoot! Shoot!
You gotta want it.
That's right. Okay, and we ended up with a state champion, Mike Meyer.
Mike Meyer, state runner-up.
Huh?
State runner-up.
He's a champion. He won.
Okay, well.
He beat a guy, I think, named Pearson from Missoula. He was a leg rider. So Cohn had me leg ride Mike Meyer all the way to state.
Oh, okay.
But at division, I had to wrestle this kid from Stevensville, I think he was.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And Cohn would say, well, this guy isn't very experienced, but he's strong. And then he'd come back the next time. We're over Missoula.
Right, yeah.
Well, he's not very strong, but he's a good wrestler. I go out there, this guy looks like Charles Atlas. I mean, this guy was a muscle man, and I couldn't turn him over. I couldn't move him. I couldn't do anything, and so I was out.
Yeah.
But I got to wrestle all the way into the state tournament my junior year. Got fourth. But anyway, Ronnie Coronado, Meyer and I were
co-captains.
We were co-captains, and we had a pretty good season. We had the best wrestling season, they said, that Helena High had ever had to that point. And we did pretty well. Now, between myself and Mike Meyer, our biggest fear was who was going to have to wrestle a guy named Bill Spring, who was. And see, when we were younger, Dick LaFramboise was older, and he was an excellent wrestler, very tough. He ended up getting second to Bill Spring our sophomore year. Spring became state champion. Spring was the 3-time state champion.
3 times, yes. That was his first one.
Neither Mike Meyer or I ever got pinned by Spring.
Which was a feat.
And once again,
you might have been.
I will thank Bill Spring for saving my life, because I had to exercise my neck to the point where he couldn't pin me.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
I was in a very
Doing the bridges.
I was in a bad wreck and probably saved my
yeah.
life.
Oh yeah.
And
exactly.
so I will thank him. But anyway, you know, we'd go and weigh in Bozeman, and if Bill Spring stepped on the scales at my weight, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And
so he was light enough that he could wrestle 65 and 80.
That
right?
one time we went down there and he steps on the scale for 165.
Yeah.
Mike Myers. Poor Mike, you know. Anyway.
I can imagine the look on
He didn't pin Mike either.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But
So
anyway.
tell me your thoughts. So Spring went to Arizona or someplace.
Yep.
Then he came back and wrestled for MSU.
We thought he was going to be an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah.
And he came back and went down to Bozeman and was showing the local boys a few moves, showed them what they call a flying souffle, and broke his neck.
Yeah.
I didn't know he had a neck. I could never find Bill Spring's neck, you know, and he'd always get down on one knee and come out on the mat. I thought, oh boy, I better get down too, you know.
The first time you told that, I got a kick out of that. You said, I was really surprised when I found out that he broke his neck because I didn't know he had a neck.
No, he was a
good pole vaulter too, yeah.
I think he was
football, everything.
Yeah.
Bill Spring, yeah.
No, very good.
Anyway, I figured out your career record at 25-9, which was at that time was one of the better one-loss records, 706%.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to take a sponsorship break now, folks, if you don't mind. I'd like to mention one of my major sponsors is Brecky Excavating and Construction, and owner Ray Brecky. His phone number is 406-439-5721 or 406-443-8782. And he's located at 5925 Lincoln Road. Also, Exit Realty and Bob Denherter. Bob is located at Western Premier Helena Great Northern Hotel, and his phone number is 406-449-8831. Exit Realty, locally owned and internationally strong. Okay, now we go to track and field. And you were a pole vaulter in '66 as a junior, took 5th at the JC Relays. Now the next year, you set the Western Conference record in the pole vault, conference champion, and the Vigilante Stadium record, I believe.
Had it for a few years.
Yeah, and so you were kind of following in the footsteps of John Peterson, who was our state champion and state record holder.
Started coaching because my brother Rusty pole vaulted, and so Dad would show up down there and he started coaching.
Right.
Peterson, now of course, Peterson came about just as the time that the switch to fiberglass poles was being made.
Yeah.
Okay. And before that, you had like Frank Urasich and Larry and those guys on those steel poles.
Yeah.
Run down the runway as fast as they could and then totally stop themselves with that steel pole and go up 12 feet.
I don't know how they did it.
And over. But anyway,
and before that it was bamboo.
Yep. Yeah. And Peterson could bend that pole. And
just a little guy.
Not a big guy, but he's fast. And he could run the highs too, you know.
Yeah.
He was fast. And he broke a few poles too.
Right.
Because now remember, in those days, when the first fiberglass poles came out, you had to have somebody catch your pole. And if your pole hit the ground, it'd get a ding in it. And if it got a ding in it, you're going to break that pole on one of the next vaults.
Yeah.
Now, these days, you can't touch somebody's pole. These new poles, and there's no telling what Johnny Peterson could have done with one of these new poles. But they throw them back and bam, down they go. Yeah. And you're not allowed to grab their pole.
Right.
And so it's a little bit different.
Right.
And so it's not like high jump, not like running. I mean, there's an implement here that makes a big, big difference. So I was lucky to be on that edge of into the fiberglass poles.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I could bend a pole.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading in the Chronicle about spring, and it was it might have been football or still wrestling. It was before track, and the quote in the Chronicle was that they expected spring to bend the pole.
I'll bet he did, with a good spring in it.
Yeah, and I got a kick out of your dad. He was telling me now, you know, I've been coaching pole vault, and I'll tell you how I did it. I'd get the kids out there, and then I'd have Hal come out, standing next to me with the pole. I say, now, Hal, show them how to hold the pole. So Hal would show them how to hold the pole, you know. And then I would say, well, now, Hal, show them how to run down the runway. So each step was you demonstrating. He said, that's how I coach pole vault. But anyway, we come to, after divisionals, you're headed into state as the divisional champion. Your main competitor was a guy by the name of Les Olson from Kalispell.
That's right.
And tell me the story in Billings of how you ended up second instead of first.
Well, that was when the first year they had used the Metro. They'd established the Metro, and it was cold, very cold. And we had been using a big pole that Dad had bought that year, and I was, or that week, getting ready, and I was over 14 feet and 14.6, you know, every day, and we were going to set that record up by almost a foot. John's record was 13.7 3/4, I think. And we got down there, and it was cold, and I tried to jam that pole in the box, and geez, couldn't get over. And Dad started looking at the box, and looked to him like the box was set up about 2 inches too high. Everything was brand new down there. And so, man, I had to go down to like the little smallest pole I'd been using since a year before.
Right.
And was lucky to clear 13 feet on my last vault. I started at 13 feet.
Yeah.
I was lucky to clear it
at
my last vault. Got second.
Yeah.
And so.
And Olson won it.
And man, I'll tell you, it doesn't make any difference what you do in college. If you can't win that high school championship, it will stick in your craw for a long, long time. And I got second, and I was lucky to get second. But no, I went on to win the Frontier Conference championship, but
twice.
Not the same. Not the same.
So anyway, while we're at it, I would like you to hold this up, and I would like just one in each hand, since
little broken here.
We had an accident here.
A little accident here.
Thanks to me, but
there it is, right there.
You received this award. It's called the Russ Williams Award, Helena Senior High School Outstanding Athlete 1967, Hal Harper. And Russ Williams was a guy that was a good athlete that died by suicide a few years earlier, and so this is a very prestigious award, and that's a collector's item.
Yeah. I'm gonna glue it back together.
Yeah, okay.
I guarantee you.
Let's take it down to Al Roy and have him fix it up.
Yeah, you will, Alan. And I was in a class with some heavy-duty athletes.
Yes, yeah.
Jim Walzak, Jerry Shute, they were first team football.
All-state, And Tim Cordial.
Cordial got honorable mention. Neil Horn.
Passing records for you guys, the school records.
Yeah.
And Horn, some kicking records.
Yeah.
There were some great
Cordial. He was good. That's who else. Zan Hewson was a back. He was
right.
He was Ellingson.
Yeah.
He was he was fast.
Yeah.
And we had some other good ones.
I always liked that.
Bob Curnow. Jim Sims was a year younger. He's the one that rolled over my ankle and sprained my ankle my senior year in football. And so I didn't get to play the last few games in my senior year, and that was a disappointment. But anyway.
Yeah, right.
No, we had some good ones.
Yeah, so that's, quite an honor. And speaking of college, let's go to college now. Did you get a scholarship, football and track? Is that correct?
Yep.
At Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain College.
So tell me your football story that you related.
Well, which one would you like to hear?
Well, you've got two of them that stand out. One was the couple of touchdowns that you made against Tech. You guys beat Tech.
We beat Tech.
Yeah, tell us that story.
We beat Tech at their homecoming up in Butte. Once again, Mike Mansfield was there watching the whole thing. And we were behind. And according to the thing you sent me, I thought I got 2 touchdowns, but I guess I got 3.
You got 3 touchdowns.
Okay,
yeah,
but the 2 that I remember are the ones that I had to run for.
Were the long ones? Yeah.
They were the long ones.
Yeah.
And for some reason, these guys couldn't tackle me, and they just kept falling off me. But anyway, we needed one more score. It seemed like at one time, and they faked the ball to me, and the whole team tackled me, and the quarterback or one of the backs went around and just walked right into the end zone. And so my dad was coming out of the stands.
Yeah.
And Mike Mansfield was standing there at the corner saying hello to everybody from Butte. And my dad came by and he said, under his breath, he said, "Well, Reverend, your son played a pretty good game."
so that no one else could hear.
Dad told me that.
He didn't want to get busted
later. But the other story is we got this new coach, and he signed us up to go play Chadron, Nebraska. Well, it was a long bus trip down there, and you know the South Hills and all that, the Black Hills, all the way down there. We get out on the field, Chadron.
Yeah.
Geez, they had a lot of players. Boy, they look big. So I'm the deep guy on the kickoff. I get the kickoff, and I get hit 3 times harder than I think I ever got hit before playing football. But the first 2 guys bounced off me. Didn't stop me. I got to about the 40, and the last guy it was nothing but stars.
Yeah.
And so after that, we couldn't advance the ball. We couldn't even kick the ball. They'd come through faster than our punter would snap the ball, it seems like, and block it. And they had a fullback we couldn't tackle. And so halftime, we're going in, and I'm walking in back of the coaches, and the one assistant coach says to the other coach, he says, "Do we have to go back out there?" After halftime? Yeah, we do. So we get back out there. And of course, I've got to play defense. I've got to play wingback. I'm on the left wing. And they had an All-American named Benny Francis. I think he weighed 285. And here they came around the end run. So I'm going to go in there. Benny hit me and actually knocked me in a backward somersault in the ground. They went around and scored. Well, the next time they came around to run that play, I threw myself on the ground. And Benny was gentleman enough not to step on me. But anyway, against their...
Did you pretend you tripped or something?
4th team, or whatever their last team
whatever string it was.
Finally, our quarterback throws a pass, and we complete a pass, and we cross the 50-yard line.
Wow.
And the stands gave us a standing ovation. And it was a long...
What was the final score?
It was 93-0.
93-0. Okay.
But the guy on the radio that night, it was dark, and it's a long ride back to Billings, especially after you got beaten that bad.
Oh man, yeah.
And the guy on the radio, and I don't think it was Paul Harvey, but it might have been. He says, "You think you've been beaten bad lately? Rocky Mountain College got beat 95-0. Well, the score wasn't that bad.
It wasn't. It rubbed the salt into the wound and have you losing worse than you did.
That's getting beat, baby.
Yeah.
That's getting beat.
Yeah.
But we finished the game.
Okay. Yeah, and so in track, 2-time conference champion for Rocky Mountain. So.
Well, and I had that record for quite a while.
Conference record?
Because Frontier Conference quit track.
Yeah,
and so
all the programs
had it for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how high it was.
Okay.
14 feet or something.
Okay. All right. on that note, let's take another sponsorship break, folks. Another major sponsor is Custom Woodcraft, and owners Earl Fred and his daughter Karen operate a business doing intarsia woodworking, making of decorative pictures by laying pieces of various natural hardwoods into a groundwork of solid wood. Earl's number is 406-442-9115, and Karen Fred is at 406-438-7857. The shop is located at 1614 Grant Street. Also like to give a shout out to major sponsor, Commissioner Andy Hunthausen. Andy can be reached at andy@hunthausen.org or 406-461-2922. County Commissioner Andy Hunthausen, valued leadership, trusted experience. Okay, so let's, 2 years at Rocky, and then did you transfer to University of Montana?
Went up to U of M. I and my friend Mike Cottingham.
Okay.
His mother is Betty Cottingham, that the baseball award is named after.
Yep, the Betty Cottingham Memorial Award. He was a good baseball player.
Good ball
Mike,
player.
yeah.
Yep, he had a scholarship too.
Yeah. And so now what did you study at the University of Montana?
I studied philosophy and religion.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
And you were a wrestler on the team.
I went out. They didn't
Grizz.
recruit. U of M Grizzly didn't recruit for a wrestling team, but we had a team, and
yeah.
we had a conference champion. He was also the middle linebacker for the Grizzlies.
Who was that?
Okay, well, I'm trying to remember.
You were afraid I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, he was good.
Anyway, we didn't have any money really,
Yeah.
and that was the year that the Grizzlies went to the Camellia Bowl.
Right.
And so whoever the coach was, I can't remember exactly who it was. I don't want to finger him, but he took all the rest of the wrestling money, and that was it for pretty much for the wrestling season.
Yeah.
So
now, did you? I was thinking about this earlier today. Did you hook up against Mike, your old Bengal teammate, in the Big Sky Conference?
no, I never did.
Because he was a Big Sky champion.
He was
For Montana State.
Well, both he and Ron Incornado went down to MSU.
Yeah.
But the guy I wrestled from MSU was state champion from Alaska.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he beat me,
Okay.
but he didn't pin me.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah, thanks to Bill Spring.
Thanks to Bill Spring. No, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about your softball. You played some City League softball.
Yeah.
Who did you play for? Who were some of your teammates?
Played for O'Toole's.
Okay.
Jack Howard was a pitcher.
And you were the catcher.
Oh, and I had to catch Jack Howard. He pounded me, man.
Yeah.
My hands, that's why I got one hand bigger than the other hand. Because of Jack Howard, I think.
Catching that, stopping
Jerry
that fastball.
Toll and Mike Cottingham and those guys.
So there were some good
They were
athletes on that
good
team.
players, and we went to state. Didn't win, but
Qualified for the state tournament.
all that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. Now snow skiing.
love to ski.
Yeah.
Started skiing 63 years ago at Belmont.
Okay.
Okay. Never did race, although remember back in those days we had a ski team at Helena High.
Right.
Roy Vasson was the coach.
He was one of my teachers.
Yeah, and you've got in your sports greats calendar this year, you got
I got
the ski team in there. You got Orly Sather and Tex Joward and
was the
all
60
those guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Peggy Hollow you've got in there.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Gail
remember.
Joslin. You got them. You got them all in there.
Yeah. I was teasing Jerry Cooper. I sold him a calendar. I says, "Put that up on the wall, Jerry. Might be the last time you're famous."
Pat Tubbs.
Yeah. I can't remember what Roy Vasson taught, But the general the rumor had the grapevine that if you could get Mr. Vasson to talk about skiing, he would spend the rest of the class talking about skiing, and so everybody would kind of bait him that, and it was true.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Now, I saw a picture of you on top of Mount Rainier. Tell me that story about climbing Mount Rainier. When did that take place?
Went out there a few years ago with George Oshinsky, with Danny Hollow, his kid Ryan.
Okay.
And a couple of us ended up making it up the top and standing on top of that mountain. Beautiful mountain.
Right.
And you get up and it looks like the top of this table. It's a big crater. And then there's a steam vent coming out. It's
really?
Yeah. And you can see out into the ocean. You can see Seattle.
Wow.
You can see everything. You can see Adams and Hood and all those. And you used to be able to see Mount St. Helens, but it's gone now.
Yeah. So was that before?
That was before.
Was
Mount
that
St.
before
Helens.
the?
I think that was before. No, that was after.
Because that was 1980.
That was 80. That was long after.
Yeah. Okay.
Mount St. Helens blew, but.
Any other ascents? Granite Peak?
Well,
did you do Granite?
Shinsky and I climbed Grand Teton.
Okay.
I've climbed Cloud Peak down in, the Bighorn Mountains.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Oshinsky drugged me up. We did not leave our camp until after sunrise. And the Exum guides had come by us at like 3 a.m. At night.
Oh.
And so for some reason, Georgie got on the wrong track and we ended up on the original, I think they called it the Corning-Spalding route. And it was iced in.
Oh, yeah.
And man, I was scared.
Yeah.
And there were pitons, old pitons, and
wow.
Georgie scrambled up there and pulled me up.
Wow.
And I got up there, I was up on top of the mountain, and here came one of the first guys around from the Exum, and he said, "Oh no, they told me I was going to be the first one to the top." And I said, "You know what, buddy? Come on, man. You can," because it was about 30 feet up to the top. You can.
We'll vouch for you.
You can.
You can have it.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. This is the portion of the studio where I do my impression of Howard Cosell.
Okay.
And we get up close and personal. So tell me about your marriage to your wife, Janet. Where did you meet? When did you meet? And when did you get married?
I met my dear wife Janet at the legislature in 1985, and
okay.
Man, it didn't take long, and we got married. Well, it took about a year. And my grandmother leaned over to me once before we got married and said, "Al, when you gonna marry that girl?" And it happened pretty quick. And so she's a
now her
gal.
background. She's from Great Falls.
She's from Great Falls. She's a Matusi.
Matusi, right?
Matusi.
Yeah, because I covered a Matusi in softball a few years ago. Sam.
Sam would be would be
Helena High softball.
A niece.
Yeah,
niece.
Deb. Her mom is
Deb.
Deb.
Would be her brother's son's, one of her brother's son's daughters. Yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of sports did Janet do?
Janet was a tennis player. And I'll tell you, she was hard for me to beat. She was a tennis player, swimmer, gymnastics team, basketball.
Yeah.
And even for Great Falls, University of Great Falls, what do they call it? Province? What do they call that?
Well, yeah.
Back in those
Providence
days,
now. It used to be
College of Great Falls.
College of Great Falls.
Yep.
Yeah. So she did that, and now she's a horse.
She's a horse person.
Horseback rider.
She is a beautiful
horsewoman.
Horse rider.
Yeah. There you go. And so, what kind of activities? How do you? Well, actually, I skipped something here. I skipped your career as a politician.
Oh, okay.
So let's go over that. And as a builder. So tell me about your those two careers.
Well, you get a degree in philosophy,
Yeah.
okay? And you want to come back and live in Helena because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, center of the universe, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, I agree.
And so you're going to make a living. Well, Ronnie and Coronado and I started building. He was the boss first. At one time, I worked for him. Then at the end, he worked for me once. And we built decks, garages, additions, and a few houses.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I remember seeing the van driving around in the Coronado building.
That's right. And so, I mean, I love building. I love working for people that needed the work done, people that I could, sign a contract with a handshake, which you could do for everybody except for a bank. Then you had to sign something, but made an adequate living. But like you said, I ended up running for the legislature as well.
Yeah. Now what year?
And that worked. I ran in 1972.
Okay.
Now my father had been in the Constitutional Convention, and they had produced a new constitution for the state of Montana.
Yeah, and he had a close partner that he worked with on
He had a
that?
partner named Betty Babcock, and
Yeah.
my father is convinced that the new constitution would never have passed without Betty Babcock's support. I think he's right.
Probably right.
So, and I was running for the legislature, and I'd filed as a Republican.
Yeah.
So I would ride around with them. They're trying to drum up support for the vote for the Constitution. I'm trying to knock on doors and drum up support for myself.
Yes.
And so anyway, election came, I got elected and served 2 annual sessions, only annual sessions we ever had. And the Constitution was ratified, and that was that. Well, I was going to run again after that, but Betty wanted to run for the seat too, and so Betty filed, and you could say we ran against each other, but when the vote came in, man,
Wasn't close?
Betty swept me out
Oh,
man, she blew me away. And I switched parties.
Yeah.
I was able to beat her the next time.
Okay.
And we've been friends. We were friends right up till the day she died.
Right.
Ever since. So I served a total of 26 years in the legislature, had any number of positions I held, chaired committees, and it was one of the greatest honors in my life to represent first the people of 3 counties, Lewis and Clark and Jefferson, and then single member districts out of Helena.
Okay.
Got to sit in the majority leader's chair twice, got to sit in the speaker's chair.
Okay.
And I'd sit up there in front of that huge Charlie Russell painting.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I'd looking back at me and right over my shoulder. And that painting, if you've seen it.
I have seen it, yeah.
There's a meanest looking, Indian dog.
Oh.
And the reason that Charlie drew that there is because in 1911, the new Speaker of the House was bugging Charlie to get that painting done. It was up in Great Falls. He was painting it, right? Okay. And he was bugging him. Charlie didn't like it. And so he drew that mean dog growling at the neck of the speaker. And every time I'd look up there and see that thing.
There's symbolism there.
That Charlie was getting that guy.
Yeah. Now I know you received a few awards during your career. One was a humanitarian award, I noticed. I was interested in these. If you could tell maybe hold these up.
Actually, these beautiful gloves that were embroidered.
Maybe zoom in on those.
From the Salish Kootenai.
Oh, okay.
Salish Kootenai Ponderay. While I worked for the governor, I was honored to be the chief policy advisor for Governor Schweitzer.
Oh, okay.
And one trip I made up, there was quite a bit of concern that there was going to be mining done under a sacred area up in the Cabinet Mountains. So I went up with a couple of the Kootenai, spiritual leaders and hiked into that area. And anyway, I got presented these beautiful.
That was their gift.
Beautiful gloves.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then we've got one more thing up here among your awards. I'm going to have you hold that up. Jeannie is going to zoom in, if you will, please, Jeannie. Montana Outdoor Hall of Fame, quote, "When the Land Belonged to God Award," unquote, in honor of Hal Harper, December 1st, 2020. Any background on that award?
Well, I'm sure they would never have even considered me if it hadn't been my luck to be a legislative career,
Yeah.
to be in that. And the bills that I carried and worked with any number of other people, we were trying our best to get this state ready for the future, you know. And we knew that what's happening now in this state was coming. And a lot of people don't like it now, but we're going to have to live with it. And we were trying to get this state ready. And so we were trying to pass legislation in every area to get ready. And so I was proud to be able to sponsor bills like the Smith River Act.
Okay. Sure.
And bill to establish, help for dewater streams. I actually carried a bill that was, we called it the River Restoration Bill, put 50 cents on a fishing license. That's about what a can of maggots costs, but people said, you'll never get that passed. You'll never add to a fishing license, but it did. And it was the first bill passed in the nation to be able to improve these little spawning streams.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the way you get the good fish in the rivers. And then
Sure.
I've carried any number of other bills for the environment, the Noxious Weed Trust Fund Act, a number of different bills like that. I was honored to get a national award from Trout Unlimited.
Nice.
Because the work I did on whirling disease and trying to protect native fishes and the bills that I would carry. Some people weren't all that pleased with some.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of illegal planting going on, and there has been quite a bit around the state. And there were some people that didn't really appreciate that much. But anyway, we're fighting to try to keep our native and wild trout intact. And anyway, I've got a list of the bills I carried, and
good for you.
And it would never have happened without the ideas coming from the people around here that care and their support.
Yeah.
And there's some guys from Butte and Anaconda, Tony Shonen and Lori Thomas, and some of those guys that are just golden.
Yeah, good.
We owe them so much in terms of protecting our rights and our public access and our public wildlife.
Yeah.
So
great.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, Hal, I want to close out on something that I was always fascinated with pole vaulters and the exercise that they would do for pole vaulting, which is one of my favorites, was pull-ups. And when I was talking to John Peterson, we were talking about pull-ups and the rope climb, and he said that he would climb the rope upside down, part of his training, with his legs up, right?
I couldn't do that, but I climbed that rope 1,000 times.
Right. So I was asking you about that, and you told me that one of your favorite exercises wasn't an exercise, that when you were a little kid, you could dive from the top of the bunk bed down to the other bunk bed, face first, and land on your chest or something, which kind of helped your athleticism.
I did it once onto the floor from the top bunk bed. Kurt, that was the last time I did
That was the last time. So
anyway.
I was going to ask you about what your training is now, but I happened to learn that you still do pull-ups.
Oh, I do?
Yeah. And
did somebody see me out hanging on the tree?
Well, someone close to you saw you notices that you go out to the tree out in your backyard and do your pull-ups on a branch hanging back there to stay in shape.
That's what I do. I've got a bar hanging up.
It's cheaper than the gym. Huh?
Well, I like to ski. I love to ski. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got this great ski area up here.
Yeah.
Love to ski. And then on Wednesday, I like to go down and hike Mount Helena.
Oh, sure.
We'll hike to the top of Mount Helena, and then we'll come down to the Blackfoot.
Yeah.
Because it gets sort of dry up there. But
that's the finish line.
But hey, before we end, I want to say something about you, because we've got a new Lee newspaper editor, Steve Kiggle. Isn't that his name?
I don't know.
And he today in his editorial was thanking all the local journalists for their work to keep us informed, okay?
Uh-huh.
And of course, when you try to mention names, you always forget one. Cur3t's, you were the guy that has kept the locals glued to our very best, the ones that reached the highest levels, but also the ones that tried the hardest, and the ones that would have been forgotten if it wasn't for you and your columns. And so I want to thank you for this entire community for what you do. Well, because when it comes to journalism, you're the glue that keeps us connected. And you've got in almost every paper, you've got something that one of us did, no matter how big or how small. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. And you know, when I was doing it, and I still do a little bit of it, I always thought that the guys that weren't winning championships, that maybe took second to last or whatever, a lot of those people worked just as hard as the other guys. And, you know, so I kind of kept that in mind. But anyway, I appreciate the kind words.
Very cool.
Okay, well, that's a wrap, folks. I'd like to close out with a thank you to my individual sponsors, Ken Nettleton, Pat Murphy, Tim Ferreter, Gary Turcotte, Bill Sprinkle, Bill Bentley, and the late Rick Pfeiffer, and also a few other anonymous sponsors that I appreciate. Now, if you would like to be a sponsor on Curt's Corner, send me a text at 406-594-2878, or just remember, Hey Curt, and my email is curt52syness@gmail.com. So goodbye for now. Shaka kind ting, my brother. And with apologies to Jackie Gleason, a little traveling music, if you please, Jeannie.